Gonna do a quick little video here on reciprocal functions this morning for the class today, and leave it on the internet for anybody who wants to know about reciprocal trig functions. And I have just a standard right triangle here with x as the hypotenuse, and I have the opposite in the hypotenuse. And if you're watching this video, you should be pretty comfortable with writing the trig equation and being able to find x. Okay, we could get a decimal here, and that would be fine. Multiply both sides by x, and then divide by sine. And if you type this in your calculator, you could get a decimal. I don't know what it is, and I don't care today. Because one of the things I want to talk about is sometimes in mathematics, we don't want to get a decimal at this point, especially in engineering. All right? So the problem here is we also don't like to write reciprocal trig. What I mean by that is if I was trying to bring this sign to the top, I would have to change the exponent. And this is a disaster. This is the disaster because it looks too much like this, right? And you know this is 30 degrees, right? Because it's the inverse sine of a ratio gives an angle. But here it's this sine and -1. So we don't do that in mathematics. So if we don't do that, we have to have a new way to write this. So when we have 1 over sine, we use cosecant. And it's just a new notation, all right? And that means it's 1 over sine. So we have 3 reciprocal trig functions because there are 6 ways to organize opposite adjacent hypotenuse. And it really is, unfortunately, more of a memorization thing. So when we want to have a reciprocal function, we have to memorize or table for quite a while these 3. So you have like 1 over sine x is the first one. Secant x is 1 over cosine. And I always joke, these are backwards. If someone had been thinking they wouldn't have had the same starting letters, they're opposite starting letters here. And the last one makes more sense because it's cotangent, which is 1 over tan. All right? So these are our 3 that we'll use, all right? And if, again, I'm not even going to solve this, but this is what would be what we would write because it's 1 over sine. So we'd use this one right here. All right? How does this look? Well, for us initially for practice, we just want to get good and practice enough that we end up memorizing these by usage, not by just memorizing. So I'll stick with my favorite triangle. Let's have a out of scale 3, 4, 5. And let's use theta here. Let's put theta someplace different. And let's just find all 6 trig ratios. So if I want the sine, these again should not be a challenge for you. If you're watching this video and you struggle with these, there are other videos. 4/5. And then tangent theta would be 3/4. So if I want to do the reciprocal trig, and I want to know cosecant of x, which is the reciprocal of sine, secant of x, which is the reciprocal of cosine, and cotangent of x, which is the reciprocal of tangent. We can't go through the mathematics, okay? So if I go over here and I'm going to change this, we know that this will, if we make this theta and theta, all right, and we know that sine theta is 3/5. Well, it's 1 over 3/5, but 1 over something is reciprocal. Guys, we don't work that hard. We don't work that hard. We just know that this is 5/3. The reciprocal of 4/5 is 5/4, and the reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3. All right. When we see these problems, sometimes they look like this too. Cosecant x equals 2. And we would bound x from 0 to 360. So when we have problems like this, first thing to recognize is this is 1 over sine x equals 2 over 1 I can cross multiply and solve, but since it's only two terms, I can just make this flip, right? And get sine x equals a half. And now, this is what we've been talking about, simple trig functions, and I think of it as the triangles. And I start to think to myself, since it's sine, we know it's the opposite over the hypotenuse. The opposite is the y. So where's y positive? It's positive in the first and the second quadrants, 1/2, 1/2. So the first question is, what related angle is that? Again, if you're not sure, you can do sine -1 in your calculator, right? And find that this angle is the related angle, which I'm using x this time, so x related is 30 degrees. And then we can find the 2, right? So now we know this is 30. This one's 30, that's the easy one. And this one is, well, all the way around, so it's 30 plus blue is 180, but guys, it's 150. And you'll notice right away, even though it started at cosecant, it really is the same process. It just, we always go back to sine, cosine, and tangent for doing the sine solving. So again, reciprocal trig, we're going to practice it. We're going to get really good at doing it, all right? And there are three functions. There is cosecant x, which is 1 over sine, secant x, which is 1 over cosine, cotangent x, which is 1 over tangent x. Remember to always have an argument with your trig. Have a good day.